Now they just do a little.
Really?
Still have to.
Oh, yeah.
Turn the model off.
It's going to be about 7 o'clock. I guess we can get started. I'd like to call the June 25th meeting of the Selectmen to order, starting with a roll call to my right.
Vaughn Morgan.
Paul Sanderson.
Jim Ralston. Chip Huzzy.
And Selectman Duraki is absent tonight, has advised us of that in advance. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing, E911 renaming and renumbering roads. So I'll recognize our two chiefs to take this away.
As I don't think we have it up tonight, but as we discussed 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, there was discussions about Great Bay Road into Dearborn Road being renamed for part of it and renumbered. And obviously with the input of the 911 state agency, we'd like to recommend that those changes take place. The effective date still wouldn't be until January 3rd.
Yes. Okay. So do you have anything else you'd like to make for a presentation on it? If not, I'll open it to any comments from the public.
No.
Any comments from the public with respect to the renaming and renumbering of roads, Great Bay Road, Dearborn Road, and Great Bay Drive? Yes.
I
And
live on
just have
Great.
your name for the record?
Sure, Karen Johnson. I live on Great Bay Road. Is there an issue with the town renaming a state road?
There is not, because we're fully in cooperation with E911, which is part of the Department of Safety. In fact, it's working in cooperation really at their behest that we're doing all this. So no, that's not a problem.
And what happens to the other part of Great Bay Road? Where I
Jim?
live?
Well, that will be up for the Board of Selectmen to discuss and decide upon. Our next series of meetings will be the remainder of Great Bay Road, as well as Great Bay Drive East and West. So that will be, that hasn't been determined yet. That's our next session. So it will depend on what they decide to go with.
Okay, so that's at the next meeting?
I'm not sure when our next.
I don't know, it's the next phase. I think it skips a
I think it
meeting.
skips a meeting and then
It's
starts again.
22nd, yes.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
I think you're right, Chip.
That's scary.
But
But everybody gets notified on this.
Absolutely,
That has to do with that,
absolutely.
You'll be notified.
Yes,
And when it gets to that point, we absolutely want to hear from the residents as to what they think an appropriate name would be other than Great Bay. And there's a lot of people here in the room who have been through this recently, myself included, and folks on
That's true.
what is now Shore Drive?
Shore Drive.
Yes. So we feel it too. Anyone else from the public who would like to be recognized on this question or this point for the public hearing? Okay, not appearing?
What do we have for the names now? How are the names?
it's just Dearborn is going to come up further and go further.
Okay.
So we're not changing, Dearborn is staying the same, and it's just taking over more space.
Okay.
And it's for the existing residents on Dearborn renumbering to be consistent.
That's correct. Yes, sir, Jim.
The existing people down between Great Bay Road as it is now and Great Bay Drive, their numbers are staying the same. I didn't see their names in here. So I'm assuming
That's
their numbers
the-
are staying.
Are you talking about Great Bay
I'm
Drive
talking
down
about
at the end,
Clark's,
or?
between that section of Dearborn Road where Ken and Pam Clark live.
Yes, I believe those are the ones, we did 73 increments, 73-foot increments instead of 50, to be able to save 10 to 15 different addresses that don't have to change, and it would be in that section.
They're staying the same.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. That's why we adjusted from 50 to 73. We're trying to impact as few as possible.
Okay, any other questions from the board or the public on this question? Okay, if not, we can close our public hearing and move forward in our next step on renumbering.
Are you gonna take a vote?
I'll move to rename and renumber 86 to 256 Great Bay Road, 8 through 73 Dearborn Road, and 4 through 10. This would be Great Bay Drive? Okay, that's right, okay. Great Bay Drive, I've been here all my life, and I still get screwed up down that end of town. All right? To Dearborn Road as recommended by the 9/11 committee. Second.
Okay, motion moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Not appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vote is unanimous. Okay. Next is a report from the Weeks Library Trustees, an expansion update.
All right, Marcia McLaughlin for the library trustees. We requested to be able to speak this evening to respond to the comments and concerns which have been expressed by the selectmen. And Craig has summarized, and I believe you all have a copy of it, our responses, and intends to walk through them with you to answer any questions or queries that you might have.
Okay, so Craig McLaughlin, do all of you have a copy of the table in front of you? Okay. First of all, I guess I'd like to preface it by saying that Paul's made it crystal clear what his position is. So I'm mainly talking to you other three gentlemen. So we outlined 10 concerns that we understand, and let me just walk through them. I think I can go pretty quickly unless you have some questions about them. On the project cost, the voters approved it, and the voters have power above the selectmen, so I think that's end of discussion on that particular point. The $2.9 million bond, again, the voters approved it. And I think it's important to note that the New Hampshire Supreme Court has ruled on more than one occasion. I'm not going to turn this into a legal process here, but the Supreme Court has ruled on a number of occasions that the selectmen cannot refuse to act on a warrant article passed by the voters. Down to reversion. The bond council has addressed it. Drainage, runoff, and septic. It's kind of interesting. On the way here, I drove around the parish house, and the roads in general are dry. As you drove here, they're dry roads. There's standing water around the parish house on all three sides. So the ground around the parish house is impervious and will be classified as that by the state. Both Altus and Underwood are confident of that. So we're actually going to improve the drainage at the site by putting in porous asphalt. So I understand that people feel it's a small site, but actually we have concepts that will put in some underground systems that will solve everything and be according to code. Right now, for example, right now the roof of the library drains to the surface and runs immediately downhill to the abutter, and we would solve that. Setbacks. Yes, the site is small, but this project will not violate any state requirements as far as setbacks. And I think you gentlemen know that the local regulations do not apply to a municipal building. For information, the Northampton Library will have 0 setbacks. So our 6 feet is small, but towns in the area proceed with even smaller.
Can I just interject here? Have you had any objections at all from any of the surrounding abutters, the adjacent abutters?
Yeah, there's one abutter. We discussed it, and they think that it's small, but the architect, Ron Lamar, addressed their concerns. They have certain wishes about the type of fencing to be used. They expressed concerns about runoff flowing onto their property, but as I said, we're going to fix that. We're going to collect all of the surface water down in that corner and reroute it back uphill and place it underground.
Okay, so just for the record, are they okay with that? Did they go along with that?
As far as we know, yes, and by her request as well, we have removed any windows from that end wall that faces onto her property so that there will be no one being able to look onto her yard, her house, her backyard.
All right.
Now incidentally, I agree, she's is not objecting to any of this, but what's adjacent to the new addition is going to be her barn. It's not her house.
Mhm.
So to a large extent, the new building is hidden by her own barn.
Okay.
On parking, we heard the concerns about putting in a new parking lot on school grounds. So as I think we've mentioned before, we reached agreement with the school to make available 10 spaces. We showed to the planning board some charts that indicate that there are at least 30 empty spaces for the great majority of the year. So they have spaces that they're willing to make available to the library. We suggested 10 spaces because there are going to be 16 spaces in and around the parish house and the library itself. The other thing I'll point out there is that the peak periods for required parking are different for the school, the church, and the library. So I don't think that there's going to be any problem with making that work. We need to proceed slowly. We could, but there's a cost associated with that. All you have to do is read the papers and you see other projects going ahead. So escalation is expected, escalation of construction costs. There's another consideration, and that is that we have insisted with the architect and the construction manager, we've insisted that they make their best people available. They can't just sit on their hands while we think about what might go wrong. So they're already asking us, you know, when are we going to go ahead? And actually the construction manager is being asked to offer his best people on other projects. We don't want that. We want to tie them up. As far as increasing the cost of the project, we have right now a 7.5% contingency. So we're comfortable, but every month delay kind of eats into that contingency a little bit. The voters approved just a vague concept. Well, we take issue with that because the detailed concept was finalized about 10 months ago. And there have been a number of presentations and discussions. The posters have been up at the library for the entire time. These descriptions included the floor plans, the street views, and the costs. And maybe most important, before the vote, flyers of the concept with all of these details were sent out to every residence in the town. So we think the voters knew full well what they were voting on. The next comment made was that it's an unsound project, and I have to disagree with that because it was a very orderly process, probably over a 2-year process now, where the needs were assessed, an RFP process, a very detailed one, went out. I think that we hired the best library architect in the state. I told him, he's going to hear this, and I told him he shouldn't get he shouldn't let that go to his head. And the fundamental design, it's a separate 2-story rectangular addition. So as far as maximum square feet for minimum cost, that's the way to do it. And then the transition to the Weeks building is just relatively minor, and the effort is that we're not really going to have a significant impact on the exterior walls of the Weeks building. Minimal impact. Only what's necessary to connect and have it ADA compliant. Last but not least, we need agreements with the school and the church before starting the project. We have made presentations to both organizations. We have put forth outlines of terms. I think you gentlemen have seen one, if not both. Peter, the town attorney, was very helpful in particular drafting the outline of terms between the library and the church. The school has repeatedly said that they're fully willing to work with us. They want a continued learning facility near the school. And I know that sometime in the past, some people in town government considered having a library somewhere else. But if it's further away, it's going to be less accessible to the children. And we think that we have outlines of terms that are balanced in every respect. So we don't think there's going to be any issue as far as formalizing those into binding agreements. Now that's 10 concerns that we've addressed. What have we missed?
Well, two, all right, that I have brought up. I understand as selectmen, we are bound to do what the voters have asked us to do, whether we like it or not. I've done that since I've been a selectman, and I don't have a problem with that. But when I do something, I want to make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. And by that I mean, I'd like to, for instance, one of the things I brought up at the last meeting was, have you been before the planning board? I know you're not required to, but have you gone up before the planning board? Because I get a lot of comments from the planning board. Why don't they come before us?
May I address that?
Yes.
Because we requested on several occasions to meet with the planning board, and they didn't have time in their schedule for us repeatedly. Therefore, yes, we were told they had a full agenda, they couldn't meet with us, i.e. that was what came from Charlotte to me. We have proceeded to this point. We have every intention of meeting with the planning board.
Okay, all right, and that's fine, all right? But because we've elected a planning board and we have hired a building inspector for very important reasons, all right? And even though we don't have to, and I have no idea whoever made this law, but why this town doesn't have to observe its own ordinances, I have no idea. That makes no sense to me. But nonetheless, if I could get some kind of a blessing from the planning board and from the building inspector in any way, then I would have no problem with this whatsoever.
Excellent.
And but I have been approached by several members of the planning board, and if that's the case, I'm going to go back to them and say, why haven't you invited them?
Well, pardon me, but we did make a presentation to the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
Okay, and what was their response?
Two of the gentlemen said, this was before the vote, two of the gentlemen said, if the voters decide to approve this project, we are willing to work with you, quote unquote.
Okay.
All right, so that was very encouraging to us, and we had the architect and I made the presentation to them. That's where we explained how using 10 parking spaces from the school makes a lot of sense, and does not inconvenience the school in any way. And we even had the SAU involved, and Saul, and so he's on board as well. So, but we did make a presentation. We offered to have a follow-up, but what I heard, a little different from what Marcia heard, what I heard was that let's wait until the dust settles with the selectmen before you come back before us. Okay?
Okay. All right. This is the only snag that I have. If I could hear something from the planning board, and I'll talk to them. I will, right after this meeting, I will get in touch, well, not right after if it's late, but tomorrow I will get in touch with them, and I will ask them to invite you to one of their meetings. And that's all I'm saying. I hope you can understand that. I mean, we elect these people for a reason, and even though we are not subject to their ordinances, to our own ordinances, I would still like to have it on record, whether, you know, what it is that they have to say. I feel more comfortable as a selectman because I have an obligation to everybody that lives in this town. Yes, you have voted for this project. The majority of the vote, whoever went out and voted for this project. And I will stand behind it. But I need to know, I need to make it very, very transparent what the planning board thinks, what the building inspector thinks, so that I feel comfortable that I've done my due diligence as a selectman. I hope you can understand that.
Can I address that? Because I do believe that Craig has spoken with Jim, the building inspector, about our plans on more than one occasion. So it's
Okay.
not as if he's out in the cold.
Yeah,
He's
and I know you guys have been
Across
spinning your wheels and going like crazy, I know
every
that. But, you know, I would just feel more comfortable if that was out in the open, so if the rest of the town knew. Yep, the planning board, we've worked with the planning board, we've worked with the building inspector, and so even though we don't have to meet our own ordinances, that's what the voters want, I feel comfortable that way.
Okay.
I hope you understand that.
Yeah.
I don't want to put bumps in the road, but I just want to make sure that what's done is done right, that's all.
Yeah, actually, I'm encouraged by that because we would be delighted
Okay,
get feedback from the planning board.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, that would be great.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that.
Any other member of the board?
What do you need to go forward to get stuff for the planning board? Because I can guarantee you what they're gonna wanna know is septic and stormwater.
Yeah, so we're digging test pits on Friday with Paul's help, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so, and we have Underwood involved. We've done a survey on the property. DigSafe has been there. So we're taking all the steps necessary to check the permeability of the soil. And we're going ahead with that.
Because I'm gonna say probably what the planning board's gonna know, can you put the septic system, get an approved septic system from the state? That's gonna be the first thing.
Okay,
And as a planning board, they're gonna wanna know how you're gonna handle the stormwater.
right,
Those are gonna be the two major things that your biggest holdup, as far as I can see,
right.
with getting anybody's blessing, because if you can't get a septic system, then that kind of does big changes, and so does the stormwater.
Right.
Other than that, so you have funds to deal with that, is what I'm asking.
We, yes, I think with the cooperation of the selectmen, we went ahead and arranged those tests. The cost will be nominal. But most importantly, that LaValle has worked quite a bit with Underwood and Altus. We have them both involved in this process. And I know that they work with you. So their credibility is excellent. Both companies have indicated to us that by using both sites, we can deal with drainage and septic and meet state requirements.
and get the septic in a, be it engineered or whatever, that will handle the 100-person capacity that Paul was concerned about at the last meeting. When you-
I would suggest, rather than waste your time, I have that information before you met with the planning board, because they'll just,
Okay.
you'll burn money.
Okay, fine.
'Cause,
We will press the guys to give us their analysis after the dig.
I do have a couple of questions. You indicate both sites. What do you mean by both sites?
We're going to utilize, as far as drainage and septic, right now, the church septic is on library property. And so one of the principles of the memorandum of understanding is that we're going to reach agreement on that, and in exchange, the parish house is going to accept water runoff through a chambered system, which is located behind the parish house.
Okay.
So it's septic going one way, water going the other way.
And it will also address any runoff from the church property that comes on to the library with that drainage there.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you for myself, obviously you think that I'm biased. And I am the person that is normally the representative to the planning board. In this particular case, I will recuse myself from that review. Some other selectmen will sit on the planning board for this review. When we talk about the church, one of the things to remember is that it is private property. It is not town property. And so that means that it's fully subject to the ordinance.
Right.
And the planning board has to look at it that way. And so that will impact their review. So when the design comes, everything that you propose to do to the church property, even if it's with their full agreement, has to fully meet the terms of the ordinance or be the subject of a variance.
Okay, well, we get the drainage system onto the library property.
Whatever.
That's our other option, okay.
Okay. And again, for me, I still have a serious problem with the reversion. I understand that the project can be bonded. That is based upon utilizing the full faith and credit of the town and the ability to tax rather than the real estate title itself. But to me, that reversion remains a serious problem. It was created 100 years ago in 2 different families. Okay, the land in one family, the building in another family. Today, we probably are looking at over 100 people that have some sort of interest in that particular real estate. And so if you were trying to take care of that, I think it would be next to impossible to get the concurrence of over 100 people to release a real estate property interest. That brings us back that if we tried to clear title, we're probably looking at an eminent domain proceeding. Okay? If that were to be the case, okay, I would sure want to do eminent domain before I put a $3 million improvement on the property, because that's going to affect the value of the real estate interest held by that 100+ people. So please consider that as you go forward.
I struggle with that, Paul, from the standpoint, again, that this has been the town library for 120 years. And this is a bond of 20 years. It is not a mortgage that's 30 or 40 years or whatever. If for some reason the town were to vote to no longer have this be a library property, the bond has to be paid off, and that's the bottom line on it. It doesn't affect. Yes, we lose a $3.5 million plus asset to the community, and I think that the citizens of the community would be foolhardy to do that too. I'm sorry.
No, I disagree totally with Paul. I know why in the old days they did this, because politicians change. They would gladly sell someone they didn't like property they donated to the town to somebody who was less scrupulous at a reduced price to get rid of it. Didn't really irritate them. No, I don't think it's going to be a big problem with the revision. I really think if you do a good job with the library, apparently I was wrong. There was 3/5 of the people disagreed with me on my position, so I'm big boy. I got big boy pants. I will wear them and sign the bond when it comes before me. But no, I disagree with that. I know why they did it, because it happens too many times. The town's own property, it sold a building lot for under $60,000. When's the last time you seen that? So I really understand why they did it. And I really don't see if the town expends that amount of money in it, they're going to really allow, well, in this case it'd be the library trustees, because I think the same law kicks in. You have to go for a town meeting with 25 signatures, and I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I think, from my standpoint, Paul talks about these 100+ people having interest. As I understand it, they have no interest as long as we keep it as a library.
Well, the difference there is that they have a real estate property interest. They do have an interest. It has a value. It exists and it's real. Now, do I think it's likely to be exercised? Probably not. But I can't control the future for 20 years, and I just think it's very important that people really consider that before they go forward on a piece of property that has this type of encumbered title.
The other thing I would say is that I think it's highly unlikely that the voters would arbitrarily want to change the purpose of the building. And I think it's even more unlikely that the selectmen would, because it would be fiscally irresponsible to decide to change the purpose of the building and therefore forfeit either a $1 million asset as it stands today, or a $4.5 million asset as it will stand a year and a half from now. So it's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
I can't say. Tina?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I think there is a difference between a contingent reversionary interest and a vested interest. And I think you would agree with me on that in
Yes.
real estate.
Oh, yes.
And this is not a vested interest. This is a contingent reversionary interest, which is very different quality and much more speculative. So I think it's important that people understand that big difference.
And that's true, and lawyer to lawyer, you're absolutely right. The only thing that I would say is, remember, in this particular case, because we're talking about the owner of the land being something that stays in existence in essence in perpetuity, the town, okay, then it's not something that's subject to the rule against perpetuities. It's not something that can go out of existence that way. It remains. And so I think it's more of a risk because the statute continues to protect it.
I don't disagree with that, but it's still a contingent reversionary as opposed to a vested interest,
That's
which
true.
is a very different breed of cat. And I think the economic point is very significant as well. Why would we give up that value? That makes no sense at all.
Today, no question.
Right.
So what I hope moving forward is that, as Chip suggested, you get your basic data in place and head off to the planning board and go through that particular review and see what's possible.
Right, and not necessarily waiting for that, we go ahead and move the bond along.
Well,
And that is what we are asking for, kind of using your own words from the last meeting, Paul, in all fairness, to go ahead and move the bond forward and allow us to work with you and the planning board in that as it's in process, because we can come to a mutual agreement that's going to work for the citizens of the town who voted for this, and those people who have concerns that can be addressed. We are willing to work with the selectmen, with the planning board. We just don't want to continue to have impediments thrown on the forward progress of this project, which was approved by our citizenry. Yes, those who voted, but they did speak.
given that request, members of the board?
It's later on in the agenda. Do you want to move it up?
Yeah, let's move it up.
Take it out of order.
Now, when you say move ahead with the bond, you're talking about approve the bond?
No, pick a bank so I can start to send the information out.
We gotta apply for it first.
Oh, okay.
If it's that easy, I would've applied for it a long time ago.
Okay.
Last week, we had reviewed the proposals that we had gotten in, and we were waiting on the Provident Bank, which came in, unfortunately, the very next day, but we have it now. Northway Bank will only do a 15-year mortgage at 3.65%. The Provident Bank is 2.5% over the 20-year FHLB amortizing rate, which would be an indicative rate of 5.03%.
So the Optima Bank still has.
Optima Bank has three options. They had the 1-year adjustable for 20 years, which is 2.19%. Adjustable annually. It's not something I would recommend because by the time we get the interest, it wouldn't match up with our budget season. We wouldn't have the right payments. We can't do a 1-year realistically on a calendar year budget. Option 2 is a 5-year classical regular rate, adjusted every 5 years, and that would be an initial bond rate of 2.65. Or option 3 is 10-year classic regular rate, so it would just be one adjustment at 10 years, and that would start at an initial rate of 3%. Municipal bond bank is still an option. Applications are due for that in November. That would not be funded until January. Bond bank just did their bond relief, their bond sales for just recently, 3.55%.
So we had a recommendation on the Optima one, what was it? I can't remember the first.
My
one.
recommendation on Optima would be the 10-year adjustable. Obviously, none of us have any idea what interest rates will look like 10 years from now. But would be, and it can be refinanced and there's no prepayment penalty. So if it looks like interest rates were going funky, could look at what undesignated fund balance could be put aside to save towards paying that down for 10 years after that. There's all kinds of options. Nobody knows what would happen at that point.
I make a motion that we apply for the Optima 10-year.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Just like I say, this is the application, this isn't the bond, in case anyone's confused.
Right, you're not going to be signing this bond. This is going to be the application, so I can move forward, send a lot of the stuff that is remaining to go to bond counsel, needed to know who the bank was, they worked together.
Any additional discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And my vote is no. 3-1, it passes.
Thank you.
Yes, Paul?
As for the library, I'm supposed to dig the holes on Friday.
Yes.
They did mention about 1 or 2 holes on the parish house property. Am I allowed to do that through the board's eyes?
That's up to the parish house. People in the church.
I have no problem with you digging them, I just don't want you to get some little old lady mad at you.
Well, I'm just saying, that was part of the thing when you said test pits. You said that 1 or 2 would be on the parish house's property.
We've made efforts to keep the church informed. Chris has been doing this, and we don't have response yet, correct?
No one has put forth any.
We don't have permission, you can't dig, Paul.
What's that?
You don't have permission, you can't dig.
We'll get permission.
All right.
It's just,
I just wanted to run that by you.
we'll have permission by
I
Friday.
have no problem with obtaining data, provided you have permission.
All right?
And I imagine, do we all feel that way?
Yes.
It'll be done by Friday, before Friday.
Okay?
Are there any other questions this evening? Okay, if not, then we'll move on. Other items of business. Next is the approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, June 11th, 2018, as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Not appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we're on to old business. We should hear a Coakley update, which we probably wish we were in Exeter to hear even more. this
Right,
evening.
yeah. Unfortunately, the EPA's National Leadership Summit on PFAS is being held right now at Exeter High School. 4:30 to 10 tonight is a listening session, which is all various communities throughout New England that have had PFAS, PFOS, giving presentations. And it will continue on tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. I will attend tomorrow and then come into the office after that. And I guess Representative Malloy was there, and there's about 200 people there tonight.
Okay.
And he said I didn't miss anything by not. I was going to go over from 4:30 to just before the meeting and couldn't do it. He did.
Yes, if I might, there were 6 communities that were speaking about their various issues with those chemicals. So that was the initial presentation, and then I think, and I left before they were finished, and then they were going into the public comment section. So tomorrow I think will be valuable.
That's probably when the new HHS report is to be discussed.
Yes. According to the agenda, it does look like there's discussion and some of the EPA people speaking in the morning before the listening session starts, where they just want to listen to all the
Any
public.
new news, or is this just redundancy?
No, this is, Well, I think it will be new news. I think there's going to be information and technical information on the PFC's levels of contamination, what is constituted more as dangerous. I think it's going to get more into the scientific part of it. If it becomes that it's all science and they're all the engineering talk, I will try to pay attention, but that's over my head.
Well, it's my understanding that the new HHS reports suggest that the current provisional levels of 70 parts per trillion are way too high, and that they would be coming down closer to the Vermont levels.
Yeah.
And if that were to happen, that is a complete game changer.
Right, because I think Vermont is a 10. The Portsmouth water system is currently a 7.
So, complete game changer. If in fact RTES agrees with those new limits.
And also in your packet, I included Jillian wasn't able to attend the very last meeting of the Cancer Cluster Commission, but she did send them a list of asks representing Greenland that they compel the Coakley Landfill Group to provide all impacted residents to safe, abundant water, install an effective remediation system around Coakley, plan for monitored natural attenuation, to change the current plan for the monitored natural attenuation, ensure that the PFAS maximum contaminant level that the EPA committed to at its leadership summit in May is as strong as possible. Compel the Coakley Landfill Group to expand residential well testing to every home in a pathway determined through collaboration with the USGS and tests performed by an independent body, and compel the Coakley Landfill Group to install and maintain filters at every home within 2 miles that request them and at nearby schools, stating that we need filters to be able to trust the water that comes out of our tap, both in our homes and our schools.
If I might, that was a major part of my presentation tonight.
Okay. Okay, so there will be much more happening. Okay, next, recreation buildings.
Okay, we have some updates on the recreation buildings. On our end, I'm not sure what Paul has gotten in for estimates as well, but we did look into the prison labor. We were actually looking for August 20th for the work to be done, because that was when the fields were kind of like empty. But we can definitely get their help the week of September 3rd, which is shortly before school starts. It's just, I don't think the teams are really rocking that close to Labor Day.
Right.
There'll be no charge for the labor, officer, or transportation. The town supplies the materials and lunch. They actually just completed similar dugout work in Northampton at Dearborn Park, if we wanted to see their quality. And we have the contact information if that's the route we decide to go for. And this is for Caswell. Having them do, no, Caswell, well, depending if, I had an Eagle Scout project come in looking for a project, and he wanted to do a flagpole at a park, because none of our parks have flagpoles that they can do the national anthem before tournaments, games, things like that. And so he wanted to do a flagpole in an area or at a park. So Caswell already has a flagpole, it doesn't have a flag, and it's not lit. So his first proposal that he's going to make to his Scoutmaster for his Eagle Scout project is to repair that flagpole, fix the base that the cement is broken, have it restrung, paint it, put up a flag, solar lighting, and he would scrape, prime, and paint the dugouts in the building at Caswell. So if that's approved, Caswell is taken care of. Then the prison would be able to do Maloney and Cresco. But that's just the cosmetic-y stuff. And also, we had a resident who had listened to the meeting come in. Magnetic. Come in, and his name is Peter Fuller. He's a local contractor. has experience in that area. He heard the work that needs to be done at Crasco and asked if he could take a look at it. So the building inspector took him out and he looked at it. And he was going to call DigSafe to make sure utilities around that building, the concrete building, and then do a small test pit in the back so he could see what the subsurface looked like. Whether or not just repairing that corner, doing the brickwork, not the brickwork, but the block and mortar work would hold based on the whole drainage issue. So he was going to do that and take a look and give us a report back. So that's the two that I have. The building inspector received one proposal from Meyer and Sons Mason. Excuse me. But it's not included. And he's waiting on this northeast directional drilling, which is Peter Fuller for the test pit. What have you got?
Waiting for bids.
Okay,
Not bids, but estimates.
okay,
I've contacted 2 concrete companies to come down and look at it.
Yeah.
See if it can be repaired and how much, or replaced.
okay.
Can I just make a little addition to that? You know that lamp post out here, by the,
Yep, the broken base.
with the broken base on it?
Yep.
Can you have them look at that?
To see if we can concrete it up.
Yeah, all right, that'd be good.
Do we need an approval for to go ahead with the prison workers?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think right now we've got a few different moving targets. I'd like to wait to see if the Eagle Scout project gets approved for Caswell. Because if that doesn't, and Sean has to look at another project, and this is Sean Philbrook. Ian Philbrook had been one of our Eagle Scouts last year, or 2 years ago.
When
It's
is
his
he
brother.
gonna know?
Very soon. He met with me last week so he could present it to his scoutmaster. Because Caswell is a nice contained area that could keep the work crew busy for the full day. They could do all 3 buildings, do weed whack, and they could do a lot for us in that one
Okay.
site.
And it seems to me that if the Eagle Scout were looking to do the entire set of painting on the building, that's way too large a scope.
Right, he's looking at if he does the post, does Caswell light post, he could do the buildings at Caswell. Because the budget he's planning on the other 2 fields, if he did one on the other 2 fields, he would need to buy the flagpole. So that was his plan initially, was to buy a flagpole, have it installed, do the lighting and all.
Okay.
But he said Caswell, he doesn't have to buy it, so he could put his funds into the paint and he could get a work crew that could do that.
Okay, so as long as he's sort of restricting himself to the flagpole idea at Caswell, that sounds great. Well within the scope of what he could do.
But not paint those buildings.
I wouldn't think so. The dugouts in that building, not only is it a fairly large volume for one person, but the one behind the home plate is a 2-story building, and we shouldn't have them up on ladders like that.
Okay, all right. It wouldn't be a one person though.
Oh,
He pulls together like his,
I understand.
you've probably been through the Eagle Scout process.
Yeah, but still, I think we should keep it at a scope where he's going to be successful.
Okay.
Could I ask one question? Is to illuminate a flagpole, is it the pole or to illuminate the flag?
Flag.
Is solar lighting adequate? Is there something that can be done?
There are nice ones that can be done like that.
There's been that much improvement with
Right.
basically
Wow.
servicing the batteries.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Just wondered. That's great.
Yeah, that seems to me to be a very successful project.
Well, there's power right next to the flagpole.
So I could do it that way too.
You got a scoreboard right there with power. So you can tap into the power.
Is the school board at Caswell?
Right in front of the flagpole.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, there is some, but I mean, that's a
Yeah,
project
yeah.
that's going to work.
Yeah.
And, asking him to put together enough of a team to take care of all those buildings, that's a little too much.
Right, or maybe it is the 2 dugouts. He was very happy with that. He's like, yeah, I don't have to buy a flagpole. Well,
Yeah, his eyes are bigger than
I
his
know.
scraper.
But his brother did an amazing job as well down at Maloney.
Yes.
He's the one that did he did the dugout there and did the garden area. And the sign that we can now post the information about when they're having their tournaments, they post their schedule on,
Mhm.
and the stormwater information.
Okay, so, yes, that sounds great, but I think we just need to continue on with this meeting to meeting until we figure out what to do.
Yep, you'll get your estimates. I
Oh,
think one of the
maybe.
big things too is we need, wasn't there gonna be option 3 is one new building
The electrician's coming in to give me an estimate this week.
to move the electricity?
If we have to move it, if that building can't be saved, the cost of moving it to the other location where we can put a new building up.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just go point to point on that. Okay, we've already dealt with library issues. Any other old business that people might have?
I do know that Portsmouth's technical people meet the 3rd of July. I doubt if they'll have a meeting, but I'm gonna try to go.
Right.
That's great. We did hear a report at the planning board about that was like, why?
Right, sort of discouraging.
But completely to be expected, which is disconcerting.
Well, I have a name Mark gave me too of an attorney in Exeter that we may look, Karen's gonna check into, make
To
sure
see if he
there's
has
no
a
conflicts.
doesn't have a conflict with Portsmouth or the PDA or Lonza.
Yeah, be hard to find.
That's why I'm starting now.
Okay. Yes.
Is that in reference to the letter that you put out about, okay, the.
Regional impact with the
Okay,
expansion of Lonza.
I thought that's what it was, I just wanted to double check that, thank you.
Yes, and it really isn't just Lonza because they keep announcing more and more.
There's more
Right.
and more out there.
Well, I know Wentworth Douglas just put a 300-unit parking lot in for their new 2 buildings.
Yes.
So it's just,
It's growing.
we gotta do something to start pitching some money to fix the corridors. 16's getting fixed, 33 ain't.
And that's because one is turnpike money and one is not.
Well, yeah, we could put a toll booth on them. Just after
Greenland toll.
Take up Thompson Brook culvert, that solves the fishway problem. I've got it all planned out. Don likes the idea already.
No, I just have a comment that when you're talking about this gateway at 33, I think that you'll find there's an impact on 151 also.
There's impact on every road in this town right now.
But I realize that because of the locals who live here, but I think a lot of people are staying away from this $2 impact or the 75-cent impact on the turnpike and using.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, definitely that's why.
That traffic on that road
33.
over the last 2 years is
Come on.
doubled.
The way is,
Oh, Waze, yep.
Waze is diverted.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
that doesn't tell you to avoid tolls. You can't do that. They don't do that.
They don't logistically say that, but you avoid traffic.
Traffic,
And
yes.
it's backed up at the toll.
It's well known that Waze is the real issue right now with summer diversion. Okay.
Well, we can put out posts that every week when we have construction going on these certain roads and we'll avoid it.
We don't really have anything in for new business that I know of, but I just want to mention one thing. I've heard from the pickleballs in chief that there may be some concern that with pickleball you have to change the height of the net, and that the center area where the tennis net is clipped down, there may be undue stress on that, and we may be causing some breakage there.
It's pulling the concrete out of the concrete there.
Right. So if we could just take a look at that and see if we need to change anything so that we don't cause that
Okay,
undesired.
my question is the net higher or lower?
It's supposed to be a little higher, but when I talked to the guy, he said, you don't really have to change your net, just change the lines. But if they're serious pickleballers,
We may just want to take a look at the net and how things are fastened and are we causing any damage.
Right.
That's all.
or set one
Okay,
net.
I thought it was the only thing I've seen them change isn't the height of the net, it's that center strap.
Yes.
All right.
So can we maybe have one net set
Well,
at
the
the
center
right
straps
height?
are adjustable. You got, I mean.
I just want to make sure you've got enough anchoring there, we're not causing any undue damage that we can avoid.
All right.
That's all.
I can take a look at it.
I haven't played pickleball yet, and I really don't.
I'll tell you, the other night I drove by, both courts were being used in that.
And was it tennis or pickleball?
No, it was both courts, each one had 4 people on it and they were
For
playing.
pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah.
I just don't want to have the.
Well, until this spring, I never even
And
heard
you're
of
like,
it.
what is
I've got to see what this pickleball is all about.
It's so popular.
Are we on new business?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? On Willowbrook, what is happening with the construction?
Well, the
There,
culvert
Paul.
is being held up right now.
Right.
They're waiting for a couple more pieces.
Yeah, the excavation
Right.
was starting today for the next 3 days.
Okay. Are they going to tear out that whole center of the
Yes.
road there too? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, but the drilling was going to start today and that was going to take 3 days.
So when you go, we just gotta get a little more speed up to make it jump.
Yeah, no, just take all the valuables off the wall on Nantucket so they don't shake.
I just know to go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's moving along.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for new business? Okay, none appearing. We can move on to our different manifests.
No, can we do the elderly exemption,
Yeah.
bond reduction?
Actually, we can do that.
He didn't have his glasses on when he looked at the screen, did he?
No, we didn't.
Come on, if you're gonna sit in, can we do it right?
See, if you make a mistake, you're corrected very quickly.
We have an elderly exemption application for a resident that applies by income and assets and age. And they are at level 3 because they are both over 80. And this will take effect in 2019.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the elderly exemption for the resident 9 Cortlandt Drive as a level 3 effective 2019.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
I would like to say one thing. Seeing as how we have their social security numbers on here, I would request everybody turn this back into Karen so it can be properly disposed of.
Oh, on yes, the
All right.
application itself, yes, please. Today is 25.
Going to write it all day, you think it would run by now.
Okay.
Okay, as Vaughn is signing that, if we move on to the bond reduction at 64 Tide Mill Road.
Yep, this is for the property basically just across Greenland Road here on Tide Mill Road, which is the new location of Dance Innovations. It's basically been completed. The bond reduction has been approved by town engineer. So we're requesting to release $9,379.80 and we're retaining $620.20 per the planning board because the landscaping had to go through 2 seasons. The landscaping is complete, it's doing fine for the 1 season.
Okay, a motion.
I move to approve the bond reduction request of $9,379.80 by Dance Innovations, 64 Tide Mill Road. The town will retain $620.20 for a period of 2 years for landscaping.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
This is set for the chairman to sign.
That would be you. Okay, now that my glasses are on, any other new business? I've been telling him to put his glasses on.
I would like to bring up there's something in the back here about the veterans tax being increased. How does that work? Does that go on as a warrant article? It does automatically?
No, not automatically, only if the selectmen decide to.
Okay.
Has that legislation passed now?
I heard it did pass.
Yeah,
Okay.
it did.
So what's the maximum
I
that,
think it's 750.
750, yeah.
okay. If that's something the board is interested in doing, and before that, I will do what the cost impact would be.
Okay.
Because we have 220 veterans at 500. And then, did they increase the,
It's not the, it's just the general veterans credit, it's not both.
but all veterans credit said it must be the same as your general credit.
Okay, I haven't looked at the two statutes together in a while.
Okay.
But the only one they changed,
But they didn't change the disabled then?
No.
Okay. Because we're at the max on both at 500 and 2,000.
Right.
Okay.
and they, as I remember the legislation, it did not require a change in both.
Okay.
It was just an authorization, and Dennis, you're remembering the same way.
Yeah. It's, that's from there.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the people before the latest group of
The new veterans get less than the older
Okay.
veterans.
Right, because the general credit does not require service in a particular action.
Correct.
It's just any particular service.
Right, that's the all veteran credit, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's visit that as a,
Okay.
If you get shot at, you get more.
you what?
If you get shot at, you get more.
That's how it works.
And you had to collect your ran fast.
Okay, any other items of new business to discuss? If not, then we can move down to our manifests.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the attached payroll number 13, pay date June 28, 2018, in the amount of $52,382.37.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to approve the manifest of unpaid bills detail as of June 28, 2018, in the amount of $107.65.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to approve the attached manifest of unpaid bills detail as of June 28, 2018, in the amount of $133,617.66.
Yeah. And the biggest impact in that is the quarterly library payment of $72,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Just before we adjourn, I wanted to ask you a question. I've gotten a call from the health officer with regards to our situation on Post Road.
Yes.
Are we making progress?
No.
Okay.
She got some help from the Portsmouth health officer to write a letter, which we've done, and she's going to come in and sign the letter, giving the resident a time certain to clean it all up. She has concern that they're really, the garbage itself that was like leaning against the house and things really needs to get out of there. I have not talked to her today. She told me that her and her husband were considering going over on Saturday and doing it themselves.
Which should not happen,
Correct.
must not happen.
May have.
Well,
I don't
there's
know.
3 able-bodied siblings that can
No,
do
I
it.
think you mean the health officer.
Right, the health officer and her husband were going to go over and just at least pick up the
There's
garbage
3
bags.
able-bodied siblings at the residence, so.
So the health officer should not touch that. Okay.
What I stressed to you earlier, my concern is what's in those bags.
Yes.
If something gets thrown in those containers that shouldn't, if you would see the stuff in this backyard, I mean, it's gotta be sorted through. That's why I'm saying the safest way is a rented container. And then that's it, they'll sort it out at the yard.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of bags, car parts, everything like that. If we throw something in there that's considered hazardous, contaminated, or something like that, look at the fines.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and initially her intention was not, she wasn't worried about the toys and the car parts and just the
I
garbage.
understand, but still,
What happened, let me go a little bit further.
Remember that we're in public session.
Yes. Right, the night before, that Thursday night, we were supposed to show up Friday. The granddaughter's boyfriend just took everything and put them in two massive piles, so everything's in piles right now. It's not like you can just go pick out, you would have to move car parts and whatever to get the bags.
okay. So it seems to me the first part is we need to please instruct the health officer. It is not safe. She's not to touch that.
Right, she had me do up a letter that gives them a date certain.
Okay.
To have it cleaned up. She put in the number for like hot junk.
Okay. Now, given volumes that we have there, is there a possibility this is a building inspector issue in addition to a health officer issue?
I don't believe so. Well, unless the pile is made bigger than,
All it has to aggregate is the size of 2 cars.
right, it has to be bigger than what Debbie Beck had. Because hers got measured many times and was always under the.
Well, you got 2 piles, but not to that size.
Okay, so it's not a building inspector issue.
Well, I don't know the rules.
Well, Debbie, the amount of.
I
stuff that
remember
was-
Debbie's pile.
Okay,
It does not,
that did not equal what the building inspector could control.
Yeah.
So if it's less than that, no.
There's a difference between trash and discarded items?
yeah,
Okay. If the volume of discarded items has to be larger than 2 cars.
well, I can guarantee you, there's at least 1 car there, but not 2.
Okay. All right. So therefore, if the only safe way to do this is as you recommend, and that we would, if they did bring it to our transfer facility, we would not allow them to dispose of it.
I would, yes, because I would want to see what's in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So therefore, that's what needs to happen.
Right. So Martha will be in to sign the letter that she had me do.
Okay.
We can send that out. I think she only gave them either 10 to 14 days.
Yep.
And then take the next step if they don't respond.
So we just need to keep on it.
Shouldn't they be notified that they're not gonna be able to take it up to the transfer station and just toss it in?
Yeah, you
I
don't
mean,
want
that's
to
what
take it up to
you're-
the
So you can't, I don't know if you
It's
really
hard
say it
for-
that way, but you can
Well-
say it's gotta be, must meet, if you bring it to the transfer station, it must meet our requirements.
Right, because some of it's plastic kids' toys.
Well, it's going to have to be subject to
Right.
inspection.
Right, just like anyone else brings up a bag.
What,
it has
what,
to-
one thing I would suggest is, before they bring it, separate it. Put your trash in as a load, bring it up just trash. Bring the kids' toys up as just kids' toys. Those got prices, they gotta pay for that.
Yeah.
You know, sort it before you go. And then, that way they can inspect it.
Why don't we just get a dumpster and dump it all in there?
I think that's the safest.
That to me is the easiest, fastest, and
At the
safest.
town's expense.
Well,
That was my issue, is like,
what that's going to be is that's a minimum $600 charge plus tipping, right?
I would say,
Yeah.
to get a 20 to 30 yard container, you're looking at $600 to $1,000.
Yeah.
With the tipping charge.
With the tipping, total.
Okay. And so it was their responsibility to clean this up. And so if we have to take action and take.
right, if she doesn't take the action in the 14 days or 10 days, whatever Martha's letter says, we can then pay to have it done, put a lien on the property.
Right, and now, if we do have to do it, do we have to get a court order to do it? Do we?
No, I asked Martha that, and she looked into the health officer regulations, and because there's rodents, she has the authority as a health hazard.
So, like, somebody can go in there with a front end loader, pick it up, dump it in the dumpster,
And the woman already signed a release to do that.
okay, all right, that's.
The front end loader to me is the safest way.
Yeah, that to me just makes the most sense.
Because even if you gotta, you just gotta roll it into the bucket, you're touching it as little. I don't wanna reach into a pile of
No, I
stuff separate
understand
when
that.
there's rats.
Yep.
We know there's rats.
Okay. So let's proceed and do our best.
I'll get her to get that letter out. We'll send it certified.
Okay. And I would just like to keep the police chief advised that these steps may need to be taken.
Yes. And the police chief was involved in the same situation about a month ago when the resident behind called to complain about it. And the officer went out to take a look, didn't determine that there was an issue at that time. And the homeowner was very upset that the police were there.
Okay. But I just mean
Yeah.
to keep the peace.
Yeah, it's an aged situation.
I understand. Okay, fine.
Did you want to do anything about this?
Well, I can tell the board what it is.
Yeah. go ahead.
In today's paper I wrote an article that showed in today's Portsmouth Herald about revaluation, what it means, and so the residents know that it's ongoing. Right now, Granite Hill Services is out taking pictures of all the houses and finishing the field review. Commercial reval is basically all done. He's putting his manual together and those numbers are concrete. Residential numbers are almost concrete. So I've written this article to explain to people what it means and that, realistically, your property value is going to increase 15%, between 10 and 15%. It all depends on neighborhoods and things like that. That does not mean your taxes are increasing 10 to 15%. So I did a very rough estimate and I was generous in the numbers so that I'm erring on the side of caution. And so roughly what I've said is like a $500,000 house. If it goes up 10%, it'll be $550,000. At $500,000 for $16.64 is X tax bill. $550,000 at estimated based on spending at town meeting and being generous so that it's higher than it will be, $14.59 would be the rate, showing what that tax bill would be. I'd say 75% of the people's tax bills will stay about the same. 20% or 15% will go down, 10% will go up. Properties that will go down are going to be closer to the Serenity Shore, Swan area.
Where in the heck is that? You named it.
Bay Ridge, Bay Shore, and Fairview. Fairway, Fairview. I know. Those properties are not selling at, right now, a middle of the class road house is selling about 18% higher than we have it assessed for. Houses in that area with water view, marsh view, are only selling 10% higher than they're assessed. The small houses, Meadow, McShane.
Selling like hotcakes.
Holy Hannah, they're selling for 20 and 25% more than what we have them assessed for. They can't go on the market and last more than 24 hours.
That ranch up past me, I don't even think they got the sign up.
Anything that's under 300,000 is like,
Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one I told.
Gone plus, I mean, they're offering more.
right,
Okay.
right, we did. We had one that came in and they had to pay more.
Yeah.
Because they got 2 offers immediately.
I thought that was a good article.
Okay, thank you.
3 things for Paul. I know they're paving Bayside Road. Have you noticed the pothole in Winnicott? See if they can throw a shovelful in there,
Where are you on Winnicott?
right? Stop sign.
Oh, that's.
That's a normal, and it's not beside the road, it's
So
out in.
they're gonna be paving Bayside tomorrow. I'm gonna do Castle Field. If they're on Bayside, I'll talk to them to see if they're gonna throw something in there.
How'd you make out on Newington? Did you ever get a hold of the water department, see if there's a leak underneath that road causing that thing to deteriorate?
They, never really got back to me. I'll make another
That's why I'm
phone
just
call.
reminding, and don't forget that bench up on Veterans Park is in tough condition.
Yeah, that one's gonna be tossed out.
All you gotta do is pull the wood and have somebody redo the wood.
You think that's gonna unbolt?
This is bolted, it's pegged.
You sure?
Yeah, I looked at it.
Oh, all right.
That's why, take it apart, I wouldn't lift that whole thing.
That's the old one. That's really,
That's
the one
it.
that was partly green.
Yeah.
Somebody
I mean,
painted
there's
it.
some good chemical on that, get rid of that.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
So, thing on.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Karen.
8:15.
This stuff was on the floor in here, just let you know if somebody asked for it.
Anybody gets any calls about the flag poles up at the Memorial Park?
Tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot.
Because of the storm, they canceled today, and she called me up, said that it's rescheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of calls on that, unfortunately, because it was the Boy Scouts on Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's
So-
when it happened.
Yeah.
What's that?
They did
There's
something
been
to the
no flag
road.
there.
The string is nylon.